All right. Thank you for coming, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And I don't know which places are you from. Good night as well. So anyway, my name is Enrique. I'm one of the course consultant for PMP here in Quadra Plus. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, perfect. So welcome to the free webinar for project management and Agile Practices in Predictive World. So before we start with the webinar itself, let me just share some webinar guidelines. So if you'd like to speak or if you're not talking, just kindly put your mics on mute so that we can hear each other well. And for verbal questions, just normal, just wait for someone who will finish speaking. But there's a chat box you can post if you have any questions or any technical issues. And yes, just talk a little louder while asking questions. So let me just brief you guys about our company. We are Quadra Plus. We are Dubai-based, KHDA approved training institute. We provide hybrid sessions. You can do face-to-face or classroom and live interactive online sessions. And we're also doing blended programs. We're catering for public and corporate exclusive batches. So there are some corporates here in Dubai, MENA, GCC, who's registering their employees with us. All right, so we almost already catered 4,000 plus students and having 30 plus instructors and catered almost 50 plus corporate training on their vicinity or area. So our company's mission is to empower learners through scalable, affordable, high quality education by delivering technology. So we keep on improving ourselves with regard to the new approach of blended learning and also technology on how we provide this knowledge to our participants. And one of our best courses or portfolio, we're providing healthcare such as the medical coding. And for management, we do have this project management, risk management, quality management, finance, facility management by IFMA, and office management tools. And for green building, for sustainability, we do have Lead GA, Leadership in Energy, and Environmental Design, Green Associate, and Lead AP Accredited Professional. We also do provide engineering design, software design development, and those other soft skills. We are proud accredited by Knowledge and Human Development Authority, KHDA of Dubai, Minister of Education, and a member of AMCASBOL, American Medical Certification Association, and proudly an authorized training partner of PMI. So we can provide those PDUs for those aspiring PMP certified. If in the future you need PDUs, you can also contact us. We can provide those PDUs with you guys. And also International Quality Federation. We are also accredited. So why choose Quadra Plus? Expert instructors. Our instructors are also certified by on the field that they are providing. And yes, we are providing blended learning. And most of all, it is important to have exceptional customer service. So for those people who needs assistance with back office, exam application assistance, setting up or installing mock exam applications. So that's what we are proud of, our exceptional customer service. And we are continuing to enrich our network as well. So yeah, just I'm just showing you our ATP badge. You can also verify that by going to PMI's website and search for authorized training institutes of PMI. So guys, without further ado, let me introduce our guest lecturer right now, Ms. Durga Devi Padmanaban. She is a PMP certified and authorized training partner instructress of PMI. She's also one of the PMBOK Guide contributors. She is also a Six Sigma certified, green belt and black belt, and a safe agilist or skilled agile framework certified. Ms. Durga, you can take over now. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Enjoy.
Hi, Enrique. Do you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Durga, I can hear you. You can take over now. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody. I hope all of you can hear me. And could you all see the screen?
Yeah, you can see the screen.
All right. Wonderful. So thank you, Enrique, for your brief introduction. So good evening, everybody. So as you know, the topic for today is Agile in Predictive World. So before I move ahead and present the content, I have certain questions from you so that we can accordingly take the presentation in that aspect. So I want you to type in the chat box what kind of a sector or industry that you work in. You can also tell me like what kind of a product or service that you create, or you can simply say what sector or industry you work in. You work in construction. You can in specific tell me like in construction, like infrastructure or residential, or maybe a mixed of projects or oil and gas or IT. If it is IT, like what kind of product that you create in a single message. So don't type it in several messages. So let me see that. Okay. So I see Mr. Tharni from construction, Joy from trading. Okay, Faisal from construction pumping stations, Pulkanlaya from health services. Okay. If you're not working, if you're a student, please do mention that. Marketing, customer service, investment. Oh, that's great. I see none of you are from IT so far. Is anybody from IT or IT enabled services? So far I don't see anybody from there. Okay. Logistics and supply chain, interesting. Anybody from banking, healthcare? All right. So I'm so glad that the participants are from variety of field, not just IT or not just construction. I see a lot of. So I was actually expecting people would either be from construction or IT. These are the sectors that I have been expecting. But this crowd is really a wonderful crowd to have a good brainstorming ahead. All right. Now I have another. I want to take a quick poll. So let me post a question. You will now see a question in your screen. So please do answer quickly because I will close the poll very quickly. Okay. I'm asking a question now. Do you all see a question? Okay. Okay, so I'm ending the poll. So I see that most of you say that somewhat familiar, and only one have confidently, somewhat confidently say moderately familiar. And let's say 30%, around 30% of you are not familiar. Fine. Okay. So I'll share the results so that you can see. We're expecting more participants, but let us go ahead. Now, let me ask another question. Just poll 2. Okay, this is also a similar question, but I hope that you can see another question. Please do answer. Do you see a question now? I hope now you will see the question. Okay. All right. So I see some kind of a contradiction, which I did not expect. So some of you have experience in working in agile environment, but yet most of you said that you either do not have knowledge on agile values and principles. Fine, interesting. All right, so I'll end the poll. I'll share the results with you. Okay. Fine. So thank you for participating in the poll. So I assume that 50%, not even 50%, 70% of you have answered that you have either no or very less experience, and also particularly your awareness on your agile concept seems to be relatively less. So let me first introduce what is agile for people who are particularly new to agile. Let me introduce what is agile to you, so that we'll all be in the same page before even we go ahead. So let me quickly tell you the history of agile. The agile can otherwise be called as adaptive, although we often use the term agile, but a very formal term for agile is adaptive. So adaptive and agile, I'll use it interchangeably. Similarly, the other side of the spectrum can be called as the waterfall model or the predictive model, right? So our title itself is Agile in a Predictive World. So predictive is usually considered as the traditional way of managing the projects, which in IT terms, they call it waterfall. Waterfall now have become like an industry neutral terminology. So during 1970s, this is when some kind of a discussion was happening, in particular in the software industry, like criticisms about waterfall model being very rigid, waterfall model, which I mean the traditional way of managing the project, like preparing a very elaborate plan and going step by step, right? So there was some kind of a criticism, which this kind of a sparked, triggered the discussion on agile, I would say. So during 1980s, particularly late 1980s and 1990s, this is the time some early agile concepts came into picture. You would have heard of certain agile terminologies like Scrum or Kanban, Crystal. These are called as agile methodologies. So this Scrum, Crystal, Kanban, these kind of concepts started emerging during 1980s and 1990s. And in 2000s, particularly after the Y2K problem, which was in 2000. So 2001, Agile Manifesto was published. 17 software professionals have come together in the state of Utah, United States, and they published something called as Agile Manifesto. To this day, this Agile Manifesto seems to be it acts as the foundation for all the Agile methodologies. I will quickly tell you later what was written in Agile Manifesto. And then in 2010, this is the time Agile started navigating through the other industries. So it has started, people started talking about Agile, if not in the Eastern world, at least in the Western world, other industries, particularly service industries. Could you guess, like, which industry in particular, apart from the software industry, in which industry in particular it started navigating through? Any guess? You can post your answers in the chat box. After software, which industry start discussing about Agile? Any idea? No idea. Okay, so it was banking sectors and healthcare sectors. So because this banking sector have started becoming IT enabled. So in today's world, you cannot actually, completely divide this banking industry and the IT industry. We are like, banking have itself become what? More IT enabled. The products and services are IT enabled products and services. So this is the industry where it has started, the growth of Agile become bigger and bigger. And 2020, of course, the world was kind of shut down, but Agile was emerging during this period. While the world was completely shut down, when we started working online, when this rapid changes started happening, and we really witnessed this rapid change during this COVID era or period. So here, during this period, to 2020 and after, so we are talking about taking Agile not at a project level, not at a program level, not at an operational level, but at an enterprise level. So Agile at an organizational level, enterprise agility. And after 2020, like in 2022, now in recent past, so we are talking about integrating artificial intelligence with Agile project management, or in other words, enabling Agile project management with AI aids. So this is, it's already happening, and it would be taken to a little more broader, bigger picture in the near future. So this is a quick journey of like how the term Agile became popular, and so you can see that it is very recent. When I say very recent, only like 1960s and 70s after, you can see like Agile, the word Agile became popular. So from the history, does this mean that does this mean that Agile is a software thing? Many people think that the moment they hear about Agile, at least now we can see some kind of a good awareness in service industries. But even today, in the construction industry in particular, thinks that Agile is something like a software thing. Okay. So here I want to ask you a quiz. Okay. One moment. Right. I think let me ask you this quiz orally. So, do anybody know what Agile Manifesto talks about? Agile Manifesto, what does it talk about? Do anybody here is aware of? People who are particularly have some awareness on Agile. You don't have to discuss the points in it, but in general, what does it talk about? If you do not have an idea also, please post it that you don't have an idea. Okay, start getting some answers in direct chat. Okay, all right. So I understand that many of you are not aware of it. Right. Agile Manifesto in particular talks about what is Agile culturally. If you think that Agile Manifesto is kind of a methodology, okay, where it is gonna, yes, I got a answer here. Yes, it talks about values. That's right. So Agile Manifesto does not gives you like a procedure manual. Okay, so it would not take you that the recipe for Agile, or it does not talk about like, okay, how do you have to mix these ingredients to get a great Agile product. That's not what Agile Manifesto talks about. Agile Manifesto particularly talks about the cultural aspects. When I say cultural aspects, the values, the philosophy behind Agile, or the principles behind Agile. This is what Agile Manifesto talks about. So, Agile Manifesto, you can see here on the screen, it talks about like 4 values. So, you can see 4 value statements here, and then 12 principles. I'll quickly go through it, but let's not waste time on, uh, going word by word on the Agile Manifesto. This is for your future exploration after you complete the webinar. So I'll quickly go through this value. If you see individuals and interaction over process and tools, value number 1. Working software over comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Responding to change over following a plan. So these are called as Agile values. Okay, I repeat again, individuals and interaction over process and tools. So when we say over, it does not mean that we are replacing the right side items with the left side items. We are not saying that we don't require processes, we don't require tools, logical or software tools, we don't require them. That's not the meaning here. So projects are successful not because of like great technology or tools that you have. Like for example, you have a Microsoft project, you have Primavera, you have like SAP. So these are tools, right? They would not determine success of your project. What determines success is individuals and interactions, like how people talk to each other, how do they collaborate, how do they work as a team, okay, and how empowered they are. That is the mantra. Similarly, working software over comprehensive documentation. So remember that Agile Manifesto was written by 17 software professionals. So when they say working software, actually what they mean is working product, because for the software development company, the product is the application, the software itself. So that is why people think that, okay, everywhere in Agile Manifesto or in Agile methodologies, you will see software relevant words and terminology. So people tend to be little scared of these terminologies, or they think that, no, it's not for me, kind of an attitude that we see because of this software related terminologies. So let me call it like working product. We can also call it a working solution because it could be a product or a service over comprehensive documentation. So when we say documentation, we mean the procedure manuals that you create, the planning documents that you create, or the elaborate bill of materials, BOM or BOQ that you create, the estimates that you create, So the working product, we have to give more focus on the product itself. So rather than focusing more on the paperwork. So again, we don't mean that documentation is not necessary. What do we mean here is where the focus should be, right? Which is the first priority? That's what Agile Manifesto talks about. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So, we show a lot of enthusiasm during the very beginning of the project till we sign a contract with our customer. The customer could be an internal or an external customer. So, and we try to put things in a way that we don't get caught, right? So the contracts are very carefully drafted in a way that we many a times want to move the risk to the customer, or sometimes customer tries to move all the risk to us. When I say us, I consider us as a project development project team. Okay, so both the parties are trying to transfer the risk to the another party. But what we fail to understand is we are here not to escape from the project, but to come together, collaborate with each other, and then create a product that the customer wants by frequently collaborating with the customer. Responding to change over following a plan. Again, we are the third and the fourth point is very similar. So rather than preparing a very detailed plan and we don't want to change a plan. So many a times we say no to changes, even sometimes the changes are very necessary. We frown upon the changes because we don't want to change a plan, because we have spent a lots and lots and loads of time in planning, right? So Agile Manifesto talks about like where your priority should be. So you can even see kind of some kind of a disclaimer statement here. While there is value in the items on the right, so the items on the right are process, tools, documentation, contract, following a plan. Yes, process and tools are important, documentation is important. We have to sign a contract, we have to negotiate a contract, we have to prepare a plan as well. So there is value in the items on the right, but the value is more on the left side items, or in other words, you have to prioritize the left over the right. Okay. So this Agile Manifesto, the 4 values, is elaborated through 12 principles. You can see the 12 principles. I'm not going to read each one of them. So this 12 principles in a way explains more about the value. Whatever you saw in the value, you will see a similar kind of a statement in principles as well. Just to put it, the principles in a quick snapshots. So Agile talks about satisfying the customer. Very first thing is like customer satisfaction. But how do you satisfy the customer? By creating value, or in other words, by delivering the product, focusing on the product, focusing on the technical excellence of the product. And customer collaboration, you would welcome changes, keeping a change welcoming attitude and a mindset. So that is another thing that Agile talks about. Deliver frequently, don't wait till the end. Okay, deliver as early as possible. And then it talks about collaboration. The technical team and the business team should collaborate together, and people should be highly empowered. Loyalty and trust is given primary importance, and the loyalty and trust can be built by face-to-face conversation, interactive communication as much as possible. And then again, they talk about the self-organized teams. Self-organized here means empowered teams. And then they talk about working product. Okay, so the primary measurement for progress is product. And then they talk about simplicity a lot. Agility in itself means simplicity. Okay, what is good product? The simple product, which we call it as the KISS principle. Okay, keep it simple, right? And then they talk about continuous improvement a lot. Okay, continuous improvement, sustainable development. And then they also talk about team reflecting and adjusting over and over and over again throughout the project, right? So in a way, this 12 principles talks about like how the culture should be, right? How do you treat your team? how do you treat your customer, how do you handle your project, etc. So this is to give you a quick snapshot on what the Agile Manifesto talks about. So there's 12 principles. So, and when it comes to Agile, you would have come across these words like Scrum, Kanban, TDD, which is test-driven development, FDD, which is feature-driven development, extreme programming, continuous delivery, continuous integration, safe, scaled agile, disciplined agile. So you can see these terms. Most of the terms are again very IT oriented. So when you say test-driven development, it just completely looks like what an IT thing. And then extreme programming. So the term itself means programming, continuous integration, right? So that is why many of the people from different industry, particularly people who are using traditional project management tools, like when I say traditional project management tools, I mean the Gantt charts that you're using or the work breakdown structures that you use. So these are traditional tools, or in other words, if you're aware of Primavera or Microsoft project, so most of the Microsoft project tools like a Gantt chart or an earned value analysis tools. So these are traditional. I believe that most of you are aware of or using Gantt charts, right? So when people from a different industry like a healthcare or a construction, oil and gas, manufacturing, so by looking at these, the moment they want to learn Agile, when they start browsing about Agile, they see lots and lots of IT terms and lots of IT examples, lot of IT relevant roles and responsibilities and designations. And that is why people start feeling that, no, it is not for me. Okay, kind of a attitude, right? So the construction people in many of my the companies that I consult, or many of the participants that I confront in my classes, mostly I see I see challenging or challenges, or I would say objections from construction industry. That is why I'm again and again bringing construction into the discussion. Construction or any physical asset building industry. It could be a manufacturing industry, it could be a construction, or anything relevant to physical asset. I've seen that people from that industry in particular, they often think that no, Agile is not for us, right? We want to have a very clear plan in the beginning. So people say that, okay, we are talking about like a skyscraper. So we have to have everything clearly sorted, right? We have to have a drawing. We will do a feasibility study and we will prepare drawings for nearly a year sometimes, and we get complete sign off at every stage. We do milestone review meetings, right? So no looking back, or looking back is very costly for us. To redesign or change within our products is very costly. So these kind of objections that I see, so that is what I'm trying to, that myth is what I'm trying to debunk here in this webinar. Okay, so now let me, having given you a very quick snapshot of what Agile Manifesto says, now let me tell you what is the difference between the waterfall model and the Agile model. So let's, to start the discussion, let us keep the traditional way of managing the project on one end of the spectrum, and Agile in another end of the continuum. So let us assume that, let us pick the very distinct differences between these two, and let me give it in points now. Okay. Now the predictive, you can call it the predictive way, the traditional way, the waterfall way, whatever you call it. So the characteristics of predictive or waterfall, if you look at number one, and this is where I get a lot of objections also. So Waterfall is suitable, this model is suitable when you have a defined scope. So your customer is very clear on what they want, or you and your customer have negotiated, like these are the specifications. So of course, in no project, the scope will be 100% clear. So when I say clear, I mean 90% clear. That's what I mean by clear. Okay. So the scope is very defined. And then as the scope is very defined, as the requirements are very clear, maybe you and your customer sign a lump sum contract. So you may go for a fixed price contract. And then as things are very clear, sometimes even when you are bidding, sometimes the drawings are already ready. So in this case, what happens is the team will do a comprehensive planning in the beginning, which the team call it as baselines, right? The frozen plan is called as what? The baseline. In Microsoft project in Primavera, you would have seen baselining. So they will prepare like an activity level schedule. They may prepare a activity level cost budgeting. So usually they may keep a buffer of only 5% or maximum 10%. That 10% itself is a little higher for a predictive project. So 5% only a deviation allowed within when it comes to schedule or budget, because the scope is clear. So now the customer expects you to do it in the given constraints, the iron triangle we call it. The scope is clear, so the time and the budget should also be clear, and you have to deliver it. So you as a project manager, your duty is to prepare a very elaborate planning and then ensure that your people are on the plan, right? That's predictive way. If you work in that way, we can call it like you are working in a predictive manner. And then if that is the way that you worked, if that much of effort that you have spent on planning, that much effort your team have spent on planning, and you have communicated that plan with the help of a lot of meetings. So you have spoken to your stakeholders, like up, down, and again front, back. So a 360-degree communication of that particular plan. Now the last thing that you want in your project is change, because a change will lead to you updating 100 plus documents. You again are talking to another 1000 plus people. So because of the paperwork and the heavy, this is what we call it as heavyweight project, because you have created with a complete plan and documents in hundreds and hundreds of pages, sometimes thousands of pages. And then now the last thing that you or your team wants is a change. So that is why you will see some kind of a change hours culture. It is not their fault, because the effort that they have spent on planning upfront is such a high effort. And then in a predictive project, what happens is usually they build the product sequentially. For example, they do a design, have a milestone review meeting. Okay, look at the review of the design phase, deliverables, and then sign off, move to the next phase. Okay, and then maybe it is building the product or the service, and then sign off, and then go ahead and do the quality check or validation, sign off. So what they do is like in a very pure predictive project, when I'm talking about. So you go by sequential phases. So when I say phases, like planning, building, testing, validating, and then delivering, right? Handing over. So these are done in a sequential manner, and you will see like a very clear hands off or a sign off from one phase to another phase. And in a predictive project, what happens is the product is delivered at the end, because in the initial period they were working on plan, and then they start building on the product or service, and then they do a final verification, several checks, and then finally they launch. So the launch is at the end. In other words, customer can enjoy, or the end user can enjoy the product at the end of the project. So this kind of a release is called as an all-in-one release, or in an IT fancy word, they say a big bang delivery, right? So you can say pretty much this is how you're working. If you think maybe you are working in a predictive fashion, okay? Let us see the other end of the spectrum. Before you come to a conclusion, I want you to know the other side of the world as well, okay, right? Which is agile, okay? So maybe after you understand agile, maybe you think that it looks like I do a combination of both. Maybe you are already agile, who knows? So let's come back and identify what are the characteristics of adaptive or agile projects via predictive or waterfall. So if you're working in agile projects, probably because the requirements are not very fixed or very clear in the very beginning. So the requirements are keep on emerging. So the customer could not come up with the 80%, 90% clarity in the beginning. The customer is only 20% clear. So it is like, okay, build, adjust is the approach that is required, which is very often seen in software industry. But who knows, maybe your industry also follows the same. So requirements evolve over a time. So they cannot have a clear black and white plan in the beginning. So they're not going to prepare a one full-fledged plan. What they're going to do is like sprint planning. Sprint here means short cycles. So usually a sprint is nothing but, just to put it in a very layman term, sprint, you know that the word is a common vocabulary, which means a short run, right? That's called as a sprint. So here when we say sprint, it means that the short execution cycle. So you do a little, you would not build, you would not have a plan for the complete product. So you know only part of the product or only few features of the product or service, and then you plan elaborately only for those features which you're going to build in the next week or in the next 2 weeks. So usually the sprint, the execution cycle, that sprint is usually a minimum of 1 week to a maximum of 4 weeks. Okay, this is the rule that is followed in many methodologies, agile methodologies. So 1 to 4 weeks is the length of a sprint or length of that execution. So within 1 to 4 weeks, whatever you can build, okay, that is the deliverable of that sprint. So they will not prepare a detailed plan for the complete feature. Whatever they are going to do in the coming sprint, they will only prepare a plan for that. Of course, they will have a high-level plan in the beginning. They will have a like a project charter, or they may have a very high-level scope plan, but the details are not sorted yet in the beginning of the project. So they do so every time they're going to start a sprint, that execution cycle, the team comes together and they're going to prepare a plan. I'll talk about sprints much more detailed when I go to the next topic. So they do a sprint planning. Today, people are calling it as like JIT planning. What is JIT? Anybody? JIT, J-I-T. They're calling it as JIT planning as well. Somebody from supply chain, I see one of you.
Just in time.
Exactly, just in time planning, right? So just in time planning, which is actually came from the supply chain or inventory management industry. Yeah, so just in time planning in the sense, plan only when it is required. So don't keep an elaborate plan and then you're going to come back and change because changes are going to come, you know. So that's not required. And people sometimes call it as rolling wave planning for the nearer wave. Okay. And then, so as the team do not have a very elaborate plan and they're educated that the requirements are not clear, so the priorities of the customer may change. So even at just before you enter the sprint, you may get a change. So validate what what kind of requirements or what kind of features you're going to work before you start every sprint. So the customers and the team members come together before every sprint, okay, and then they will have a quick discussion, and then only they will go for that short sprint. So here you can see the culture itself becomes a change accommodative culture. They will be ready for change. So they will, before they start the work on a particular feature, they will go back and discuss with the customer or customer representatives. So in this kind of an environment, you will see customer will almost become like a team member. Like how often the team comes together and collaborate among themselves. Similar kind of a frequency of collaboration you will see between the customers and the project team, the product development team as well. Okay, so here what happens is the product are built through the iterations. So iterations is another word for sprint. That cycle is called as what? Iterations. So at the end of a sprint, you will see some features. That features are usable features, workable features, or testable features, right? So that features are like the customer can understand, the customer can use, the customer can experience. Those kind of features is what they deliver at the end of every sprint. So here they don't go for, let's say, a one big bang delivery. They go for incremental delivery. Incremental delivery is otherwise called as like delivering the product as MVPs, several MVPs. MVP stands for minimum viable product. So, instead of we making the customer wait for our product till the project is over, so we will start giving the customer something that he can start using, or at least something that he can look at and give a feedback after using it. Sometimes it could be a prototype. Sometimes it could be a usable feature, which we can start integrating into the customer's workplace. So these are the stark differences between predictive and agile. Now, when I say you can use agile relevant aspects in predictive, in fact, today our discussion is how to use agile in predictive. Maybe in the future, we may also organize a seminar on predictive practices in agile world. This is another area to expand, and we can discuss on that as well maybe in the future. So our focus today is agile practices in a predictive world. So I want to again emphasize that I'm not saying predictive is bad, outdated, predictive is old. Although I say traditional, I very deliberately want to avoid the term old here, because the moment we say it's an old method, it looks like it's an obsolete method, right? I would not say predictive is obsolete, at least not not fully. So predictive is still valid. Predictive is still useful. Okay, predictive is still makes life easy. Okay, there's no second thought about it. But are we stuck in this matrix, in the world of matrix, in the iron triangle? Like sometimes people are working in a predictive world for a very longer time. They could not come out of this iron triangle. Like, yeah, I want to have a clear scope. How do I start without a clear scope? How do I start if you do not have a clear scope? How would I give a commitment on the schedule? How do I give a commitment on the budget? And not only on the project development team, I'm also talking about the customers. So the customer do not have a clear requirement. Sometimes they have a clear requirement, but they are not willing to adapt to the change. Sometimes they themselves do not recognize the need for change. So it is both the ways, not only in the development team, but also on the customer side. So let us try to explore, okay, is there a possibility, right? So let's keep our discussion out of the software industry. So I don't want to again in this seminar want to say the same thing, like use the software related terminologies. But how this, I will simplify this software related terminologies that can be useful in any industry. So here, if you look at the predictive and adaptive, the points here, okay, the activities, characteristics, whatsoever you see here, some of them are product relevant aspects, some of them are project management aspects. And there is a first of all, there's a confusion with many people here. They are unable to see these two things separately. So product development and project management as two different things, first of all. Although they go together in the real world, of course, while you are developing the product or the service, parallelly you are implementing the project management practices. But let us understand that there's difference. Instead of calling it as product development, project management, sometimes people may even use the term technical and management, technical activities and management activities, as the word technical itself is not used in an appropriate manner. So I'll call it as product development activities. So when I say product development, what does it mean? For example, if you're in a software industry, product development means coding or designing using an Illustrator or a Corel Draw. And then you are, testing it using various applications, and then integration. This is for software. If it is construction, product development activities can be like excavation, foundation, raising the pillars, and then roofs, frames, so whatever, superstructure, substructure, whatever you call it. So the activity of you doing that is called as what? The product development. If you're belonging to a healthcare, and again, healthcare, if you're into a diagnostic center, then for you, the product is the diagnosis itself. So the process of you collecting a sample and then you using various processes and tools to finally identify and prepare a report, right? So, or if you are a surgeon, then for you, the product development activities could be like doing a initial investigation or checking the vital signs and then doing the surgery itself. And then the output could be a relieved patient, right? So if it is a banking industry, then here the technical activity could be like, if it's a loan processing, then the technical, the product development activity could be like ensuring that the forms which are filled by your end users are appropriate. You check the forms and you check the credit score. It goes to the next stages where they will do different applications to investigate the portfolio of the customer. And then finally, they disperse the fund, right? Which we call it as the product development activity. Product could be different for different industries. So your core work itself, right? That is what I mean by product developmental activities. But on the other hand, project management activities mean here you preparing a plan like scheduling or budgeting, you preparing a resource calendars or identifying the resources, talking to people and convincing them, negotiating them, understanding the status of your project and educating everybody about the current status of your project, solving issues, managing the risks, and then managing your suppliers, and then handing over the product or service in a smoother way, right? And celebrating success. So these activities can be called as what? Managerial activities, right? So in a way, you can say the planning, organizing, collaborating, monitoring, controlling or regulating, and then the closure, the handing over activities, right? So these activities are called as what? Management activities, right? I hope you understand the difference between the technical activity. You know that, but just to reiterate, right? Now, having understood like what I mean by product development, what I mean by project management activities, Now, your product might be a predictive product, but you may use a agile management practices and other way around, right? But the other way around doesn't usually work well. I mean, your product is not predictive, it's an agile product, but you're trying to force a predictive measure on that. You have to be a little careful there, okay? But our agenda for today is using agile practices in a predictive world. So, what I mean by predictive world here is like your people are building products in a sequential manner. The requirements of that product is clear. The scope of the project is clear, and you have very strict constraints, right? Uh, so your people are used to predictive culture, and your products are predictive in nature. Predictive here I mean the scope is clear. The scope clarity is very high. So the product itself, whatever is your end product, that as I told you, that product could be a tangible one or an intangible one, a service deliverable or a tangible deliverable. But you can still use agile practices, agile values, agile principles in such a a predictive world. So let me give you an example of product development. Okay, so how in agile they create a product. Okay, this is what I mean by minimum viable product. There are multiple different ways of you creating a minimum viable product. When I say minimum viable product, I mean that your customer need not to wait for the usable product till the end of the project. Your customer can start using the product as early as possible. This is what we mean by minimum viable product. For example, you're starting with a cycle kind of a delivery, value delivery, and then you give a much more improved product, and then you give a much more improved product. But the customer can still, travel. So you can deliver the minimum viable product in this fashion, or you can even deliver the minimum viable product in this fashion. So you don't want to completely change the framework. So you still want to start with it. You know the car, actually, you know that this is going to be a car. In the first case, what happened? You didn't know that it's going to be a car. In the first case, you were thinking like, okay, it's some kind of a mobility, a product that enhances mobility, that enables mobility. That's what you thought. So this is very agile. In other words, because you do not even know how the end product will look like. So you started with some minimum viable transportation mode, and then you literally enhanced it, and then you changed it. And then here, so till the time you move to the fourth level of minimum viable product, you didn't know that it's going to be a car. Okay, this is completely agile, right? But there is also another way. You have an idea like it's gonna be a car, but you're not gonna give like a very luxury car at the end. So it's gonna be a car, but I know that there's a lot of money and time and a lot of people, a lot of exploration required, and I don't want to finally fail. So I know that I want a very luxurious or very sophisticated vehicle, but I'm going to start with whatever I have now, like whatever time we have. Maybe we want a product very quickly, as early as possible, or we have less money in hand now. So before, the customer wants to realize the value as early as possible. So maybe he wants to earn money. With that help of the money, he wants to improve the product. He want to again earn money. With that money, he want to improve the product. So we want to give something to the customer, although the customer have a fair idea about the end. We anyway start with a viable solution so that the customer will not have any problem in his working capital, right? So either way, you can build your product. It is still called as what? A minimum viable product. You can still call your project as, agile way of developing the product. So remember that when I say agile way of developing a product, actually most of us are already agile, but we did not recognize we are agile, or we are thinking that no, we are not agile, or we are thinking we are a mini waterfall, right? But in many cases, not only in service industry, but also in physical asset creating industries, including construction. So I have seen that they are already working in a agile fashion, but the only thing is they didn't know that this particular concept called as minimum viable product, and they are thinking that minimum viable product is only in the first way. This is only if you completely do not know what is in the final end, and then you are starting with a simple solution. Okay, this is only agile way of developing a product. No, it's not. Sometimes the customer have like a kind of good idea about the end product, but this person wants to test before he builds the end product. He wants to test with a minimum viable product. In this way, if you are building your product, it could be a banking product, it could be a healthcare product, it could be a skyscraper, whatsoever. It could be a township, whatsoever if it is. So if this is the way that you are developing a product, you are already kind of agile. And this is also agile, agile in so here you can see that agile way of developing a product. So this is a mobile app, okay, developing a mobile app. So what happens, the team comes with a paper prototype. This is called as a paper prototype, or sometimes people call it as a lo-fi prototype, right? So here it's like it need not to be even in a software. It could be just a storyboard. It could be just a hand sketch. So we understand what the customer wants, and we create some dummy or paper prototypes like this, like how the screen will look like. And then once the customer may come here and give some kind of a changes here, and then with that changes, we try to give him a next level of prototype. This is called as a medium phi. Phi here I mean fidelity, okay, fidelity or fineness, or let's say resolution, a better resolution here. Now the customer looks at here, this is again a prototype. So the customer is not taking a delivery yet. Okay, the customer cannot use the product yet. But the customer could see the product, like a mock-up, like a prototype, or even a storyboard, whatsoever you call it. So now here the customer comes here and gives some kind of a changes here. And then sometimes you can even show a physical prototype, or it could be a soft prototype. Again, you can have multiple versions of prototyping. And then finally, this is the end product, right? So this is also what, in a way, agile. Although the product comes at the end, maybe the customer is unable to use the product here. The customer is able to use the product only here, but the customer can experience the product. He cannot launch the product, but still he can experience the product and give feedback. Okay, so like look at this, the metaphor, the Mona Lisa. So a sketch, and then now the customer comes here and say that I don't want to I want a smiling Mona Lisa, right? And then you do some changes, and then now the customer says that no, I don't want that level of a smile. I want a little less smile, okay, like a smile but not smile. And then the customer, and we do some kind of a changes. Again, we call the customer, and the customer says that I want like a evening Mona Lisa, not like in a bright day sun. Okay, so we do changes, we show the customer, but the customer can take the delivery. He's taking the delivery only at the end, right? This way of creation can also be called as agile. Okay, so whether you are creating a minimum viable product, right, in this way of developing a product, or this way of developing a product, both in a way have agility in itself, right? So if you're creating in any of this manner, you can say that you're already agile. So agile is not something very new. The word can be new, but we have been agile for right from the if you study the case, how the pyramids are built, Okay, so how they tested with the different kinds of prototype. So you can also see many rough or a over a period of time how the pyramids have evolved. So right from that century, we were agile. Our ancestors were trying this agility in different products and services, right? So I want you to recognize whether you're already agile when it comes to product development. Okay. But if you think that no, I am not creating my product in this way or even in the previous way, I don't show, maybe I show only in the very beginning, I show prototype to the customer, and then after the customer is completely out of our out of our sight, the customer comes back only at the end to collect the product. Maybe you might be purely predictive, or maybe you think that, no, I am not creating any minimum viable product. The customer cannot use my product during the project itself. The customer can only use the product only at the end. So neither I'm creating a minimum viable product, nor I'm showing multiple prototypes along the way throughout the project. Then probably you're completely in a predictive world. So before even you try to incorporate agile practices, go back and check, like, are you agile in your product development? I'm coming to project management practices soon. Okay, I'm coming to that after this, but I'm talking about product development first. In what way you are delivering the product? Are you involving the customers throughout the project? Are you delivering the usable features throughout the project? Are you creating benefit through the product throughout the project, right? So your customer need not to wait till the end of the project, right? First recognize that. All right, now let us assume that, okay, your product is completely predictive. So I get this challenging question from my students, and also from my the organizations that I work with, associate with. So sometimes, yes, you are completely in a predictive world. So you are, after maybe you are like a build only project. So the design is already frozen. So you come into picture only to execute that plan. Okay, so this also happens. So here they argue that, okay, if my product is predictive in nature, so does this mean that I don't even have to care about agile? Is that what it means? So I'm going to ask you a quiz before I move on to the next topic. Okay. Have you heard of lean? Okay, have you heard of lean? So if you have heard of lean, or even if you have not heard of lean, please answer this 3 questions. I'm launching it. I'm going to end the poll quickly. I hope you can all see the answer here. Anyway, I'm going to talk about this question. I just wanted to know that whether you're aware of these. That's my intention. I'll show you another question, similar one. Right, I hope that you can all see the answer. I'm going to talk about that anyway. Okay, this is just for my understanding. Right. So, coming back to the discussion, if you think that I don't create products along the way, we are very predictive in nature, but so agile doesn't work for us, if this is what you're thinking. So I'm here to tell you one interesting fact, which is one of the most predictive world is the manufacturing world, right? Like construction say that, we build products in a much more predictive way. We plan everything in the very beginning. Similarly, when you take a manufacturing industry, they do meticulous planning. But whatever we call it agile today, is, although we give the credit to the software industry that they are the one who introduced Agile to this world, but actually it is not a secret. It is known to everybody out there. The inspiration for Agile is nothing but lean. Okay, lean is the inspiration for Agile. So do anybody know, like, lean came from who? I mean, which company introduced lean to the world?
Toyota.
Exactly, Toyota. So lean was originally called as Toyota Production System. Toyota now calls it as Toyota Way. And in the Eastern world, this lean is otherwise called as Kaizen. Okay, whereas in the Western world or everywhere else, we are calling it as lean, right? So if you look at the term lean and agile, in fact, the meaning is again the same. So lean also talks about a flow, agility, in other words, faster production. Okay, so agile also talks about like deliver as early as possible, deliver value, right? So lean and agile lean came from the manufacturing industry, the automobile industry. The agile manifesto came from software industry. But I wanted to do this little exploration. Today I showed you the Agile Manifesto. So go back and look at what is Toyota's production system. There's something called as TPS house, okay? Toyota production system or TPS house. So if you look at, you can just browse a Toyota Way or Toyota house, they call it, the model, Toyota model or Toyota Way. Whatever we said in Agile Manifesto, like give importance to empowering the people, process and tools should not eat the people. Okay, people should be enabled by the process and tools. You should trust your people. You should be simplicity, which we just saw in the 12 principles, simplicity. And so all this values and culture, philosophies, you will see it in lean again. So it is not just a philosophical interjection, or it is not just a some coincidentally agile and lean. No, it is not coincidence. It is a carefully benchmarked principles and values. So the people who contributed to agile methodologies like Scrum, XP, so they themselves have agreed that the one of the inspiration for the agile practices is nothing but lean. They do not only share the practices and values, they even share the tools. For example, Kanban. Okay, this particular Kanban is originally from the name itself. You can see Kanban is a Japanese word, right? Which is introduced by Toyota in their inventory management system. So Kanban was originally a Japanese concept, emerged from an automobile industry, which is a predictive world that has been benchmarked, a little customized, and they use it in software industry. So the agile project management practices, or simply let us call it practices, because when Toyota used it, it was not like a project management practice, it was an operational management practice. So whatever we call it agile practices and tools, this has been used in the predictive world earlier in different name, sometimes in the same name itself, right? So that's what I'm trying to say here. The practices can be benchmarked and customized. So today I'm going to introduce you 3 agile practices that can be used in any industry, irrespective of whatever product you are creating, irrespective of whatever world that you are in. Maybe you are creating a product in a predictive way. This I have selected, handpicked these 3 practices that you can use anywhere. Similarly, the 2 agile tools, you can use it in any industry, and 1 value, which you can use it in any industry. So let me quickly go through what are the practices and tools and value, and many of these practices and tools again came from lean. So lean, Toyota, when they introduced lean, so what they said was lean is it is a culture. They also said that lean is not a tool, lean is not a methodology, lean is a way of living, lean is a habit. Okay, it's a way of living, right? So similarly, agile is not just a tool, agile is not just a methodology. So even if you don't know anything like Scrum, you don't know Scrum, you need not to be a Scrum certified practitioner, you need not to be a DevOps practitioner, you need not to be an extreme safe agilist to practice agile. Maybe you are already practicing agile. Just be aware that you are practicing agile. Okay. So forget about these words and terminologies and even come out of this IT world. Look at the philosophy of agile. So agile is a mindset, agile is a culture, agile is a way of living, right? That's what Toyota spoke about when they introduced lean as well. So let us start with the practices, okay, the 3 practices, and then let's move to tools and then the final value. So visual management is one of the practice that you see it in agile. Put everything visually. So if you go to a agile workspace, agile office, you see like charts and papers and sticky notes and digital boards. So this again, this practice came from where? From the lean. So if you go to a Toyota or if you go to any manufacturing company that is already following lean, you will see that everywhere the boards, the signs, you as a third party, you can see, which team is the best performing team. Not only just best performing, you will see the numbers and targets. They call it as and-on boards. Okay, so you will see like which production line is having a lot of defects, which production line is, have productivity, which production line produces more, which production line is down at this moment, in which production line the breakdown time is high, downtime of the machines are very high. You will see everything displayed on and-on boards. And this lean manufacturing companies, they don't use it to blame each other. It is not to, it should not be used to say that, okay, this team is doing better than this team. No, it's not for that reason. It is deliberately, it is avoided. That kind of a discussion is avoided both in lean culture and agile culture. So in agile culture also, what they say, the information radiators, the displays are not to compare one team with each other. So this is to bring transparency. So I'll show you some pictures here of, the agile workspace. So this is a company. So these are the task boards, okay, which they call it as the Kanban boards, and risk matrices. Okay, I'll show you one more. So whenever they discuss, so in many of the agile workspace companies, all the walls, you can write it on the walls, because the walls can be like, you can erase the letters on the walls, and that's how the finish is. So wherever you want to write, you can write it. You can write it in the glass and erase it. So everywhere you can put things in a physical, in front of your eyes, right? They create more tangibility to the things that you plan. So I'll show you some more. So you can see they put the charts in such a way that everybody understands. So they don't use very mechanical. When I say mechanical, I mean very boring measurements that nobody understands. So they put it in very simple, like how kids, likes colors and graphs with colors. So that and they don't use complicated measures to measure the projects. So for example, here if you look at, this is called as a cumulative flow diagram. So here you can look at that, how much of the features or how many requirements are there. They call it backlog. And then how many of the features are in the analysis stage, how many of the features are in the development stage, how many of the features are in the testing stage. So they have a task board, and this task board is directly converted here. Okay, so they can see that, okay, where the features are pending. So this is called as what? Accumulative flow diagram, and these are called as burn up and burn down charts. So these are displayed everywhere when you enter into a agile workspace. So you can see this is followed by a HR. So they are following this kind of visual management in a HR team. So that's why I say that agile need not be only in product development. Agile can be in operations. In fact, agile, the lean originated from the operation side. So here the HR team, it's a recruitment team. So they are listing like how many candidates were recruited through phone, through job portals, okay, through different sites, and how many were rejected applications, okay, how many have gone to the next round, okay, how many were new hires, with the names and with necessary details. It can be like a physical tool, which we call it as a low tech but a high touch, right? So you can use the sticky notes and charts, which is low technology, but it is a high touch, right? Or you can even use a high tech, high touch, maybe a digital board. That's fine, as long as everybody can see that, as long as you don't have to really click multiple clicks, as long as you don't keep those information in the folder. So many information, particularly the motivating information, particularly the task progress information, should be visually displayed. So this visual management in one particular industry after manufacturing, okay, it is followed in another industry. Any guess? In one particular industry, apart from manufacturing, you will see full of symbols and color codes and visual tools. Which industry is that? Any idea? We have people from that industry, in fact. How many of you are from healthcare here? Yeah, in the initial poll, I saw that few people are from healthcare, right? So healthcare is an industry that applies lean to a greater extent, right? They are the one who, introduce this color codes, particularly when you have patients, they should know where is the diagnostic center, where is the, prescription pharmacy, and where is the radiology department. So because this is the place where people from different education, people from different language, people from many people who do not have any knowledge on the technical language which is used in healthcare. So all of them will come inside this healthcare, enterprise. So what happens is healthcare has to use a lot of symbols and color codes in order to ensure that everybody understands it. So this is what Agile calls for. So no, it is not only for people wherever you have the end user coming to your site. So this is the kind of a practice that they follow in any agile culture, full of color codes and easy measurements and quick to understand. So in a just a glance, whoever you are, maybe you are a sponsor walking, maybe you are a general manager walking in onto the workplace, or maybe you are a customer who have come for a visit. So anybody can understand these measurements. Okay, such a measurement, such a transparency is what they build in Agile. So this is practice number 1, visual management. And then the practice number 2 is retrospectives. Have you heard of retrospectives? Is anybody here following retrospective culture in your company? Okay, I see some chat messages here. Okay, let me ask this question a little different way. Do you conduct lessons learned meetings? So when I say retrospectives, maybe you don't know. Yeah, so now I start getting more answers, both in direct message and also in this one. Yeah, so retrospective meetings is a culture that is followed in Agile. Again, the retrospective meetings, the inspiration for retrospective meeting is again from manufacturing. So in manufacturing, there were, like, they call it as continuous improvement meetings, or quality improvement meetings. Yes, retro generally means look at the past. Retro means what? The immediate past. So usually we call the 80s as what? 70s, 80s are called as retro for us, right? Because that is a very near past. So retro means look at your immediate past. Spective means what? Look at. Okay, so this is nothing but a reflection meeting that is followed in Agile sprint after sprint. But the only difference is, in many of the companies that I see, they conduct the lessons learned meeting less frequently. Or many of us conducts only the lessons learned meeting only at the end of the project, which Agile questions. So because if you're conducting a lessons learned meeting at the end of the project, you can only correct the next project. You cannot have an opportunity to correct in this project, right? So in Agile project, what do they do at the end of a sprint? So as I told you in the very beginning, every sprint is like 1 to 4 week length. So minimum every week and a maximum of 4-week interval. What do? They do a retrospective. So in these meetings, what happens is the team members comes together. So it is not like a meeting conducted by one superior person, like a project manager, or not the business head sponsor. They should not talk a lot in this meeting. This meeting is particularly for the team members, particularly for the members who is developing the product or service. Okay, so you can have multiple retrospective meetings for every team, collaborative team. So in these meetings, they discuss like what we should do newly. Okay. So you would discuss like what went good and what went wrong. In fact, that's what lessons learned means, right? The good events, the moment of happiness, and the bad events, the moment of misery. So both are, discussed in these meetings. So whatever you were doing wrong, you want to stop that. When I say whatever you're doing wrong, it could be procedural deviations, or maybe you have to change a procedure. Maybe you have to not only a procedure or process, it could even be a behavior. Maybe somebody was not following the ground rules. For example, maybe the people are not coming on time to meetings, or there is a lot of absenteeism when it comes to meetings, or people are simply called for all meetings. Everybody is coming for is invited, whether they are required or not required. The invitees are not properly identified. This could be a behavioral change required, right? So arriving on time, or not deviating from a topic. So these could be some behavioral changes. So whatever the procedural changes or behavioral changes that is required, because they were not what went wrong, you want to stop those mishaps. And what you want to do newly, what you can improve. Okay, and then something that is already going good, you want to maintain that. You want to recognize, okay, these practices we did which helped us. So we had several feedback loops, which helped us in reducing the failure. The customer recently expressed satisfaction because of this behavior, which we want to maintain. So you recognize your good practices and you emphasize that, guys, these are good. Please continue to do the same, right? And then again, we say, guys, this we did not do good, because of which this kind of consequences happened. So we want to stop those behavior, right? But there are certain new opportunities to improve, right? So recently somebody have had a conversation with some other team or some other friend. So this person says that, see, I recently came across this kind of a practice through my friend or through another company. So why don't we try that? Why don't we try this practice? So it can be like an improvement, new idea to be followed. So remember, this retrospective meeting happens every 1 week, or you can have a retrospective meeting every 4 weeks. So between 1 to 4 weeks, that frequently it should happen. So a particular agile project at the end of a retrospective meeting, so they develop this kind of a visual output. So whatever they discussed in the retrospective meeting, this is also visually displayed. So either in a chart paper or in a sticky note or like a digital board, right? So they would also track, okay, whether this has been followed, because in the next retrospective meeting, we have to discuss whatever we thought that we have to change. Have we changed that? Does this work out? Or do we have to change further? Or whatever we wanted to maintain, was it maintained? So the whatever we discussed in the last retrospective meeting, which will be again recalled in the next retrospective meeting. So you can see here team 1 in the last retrospective meeting. So what did they felt that, which they have to maintain, which was good. What they think that they would have, improve. Okay, so this is the output of a retrospective meeting. So this can be followed in any, whatever is your product, whether it is a product, predictive or an agile product, you can follow this practice anywhere you want. So this is what I mean by frequent feedback loop, not only from your end user, but also within your team. And remember, the retrospective meeting again should not be like a blaming meeting, like one person. So in fact, in a retrospective meeting, each member will discuss what I did good, what I did bad, which I think I have to change, or which I have to eliminate that kind of a behavior or a process, or what I think that I should do further. Every team member will talk about what I can do. And then as a team, they discuss what we can do collaboratively together. So it should not be like pinpointing each other. It should be like focusing on yourself and then focusing as a team. And that is why we say it should not be like a superior blaming a subordinate or subordinate complaining about a superior. So it's the team's activity. That's how it has to happen. And again, the inspiration is from quality circle. There is a practice that manufacturing companies do. Particularly, it was introduced in Japan, which is called as a quality circle meeting. That meeting is the inspiration for retrospective meeting. Number 3, as I told you in the very beginning, sprints. Okay, so instead of having a longer execution cycle, so concentrating on few features and breaking down your execution cycle into smaller execution cycle. So maybe you're going to give a useful product only at the end. Fine, no problem. Maybe your product is a predictive product. Fine. But can we find a way to identify, like, okay, in the next 4 weeks or in the next 2 weeks, we are going to concentrate on these 4 features. So we are going to develop, or we are going to have a discussion, or we are going to start building this 2 features, this 4 features, right? So this is what the clarity is very high, or this is what is immediately required by the customer. So prioritizing value for your customer. So a sprint is nothing but, as I told you, a short cycle. So in agile projects, what do they do? In the first sprint, in every sprint, what happens? The phases, the developmental activities are repeated. A design work, a developmental work, a testing work, again a design work, developmental work, testing work. So it is not necessary that you have to repeat all the phases. Although originally in software, when it comes to every sprint, they repeat all the developmental activities. But in your case, it is not necessary that you have to repeat all the developmental activities. If you think that, okay, in this sprint, maybe you are in a design phase. Your phase itself is a design phase only. So in the design phase itself, you can do several sprints, okay? So high-level design and a better resolution design and a much more resolution of design. And the main thing here is, at the end of the sprint, you are going to have a customer or a customer representative to validate your deliverable. And your sprint length, as I said, like it should be less than a month. Each sprint length is less than a month. So whether you are able to deliver a feature or not, Agile says that you have to deliver a feature here. You have to deliver a usable feature. But you can customize this. So you can keep it like, okay, every sprint is like in the beginning of every sprint, I'm going to again talk to my customer and I'm going to see whether these are the features that the customer wants, whether the customer value proposition have changed, whether the customer priority have changed. So every 2 weeks, I'm going to have we are going to reiterate the vision of the project. There is a famous saying that says that a good project manager have to communicate and communicate and communicate the vision. So your duty is to again and again and again communicate the vision, because vision leaks. Okay, this is a very famous saying which I always say in my to many of the projects that I work on. So every sprint initial meeting, every sprint will start with a planning meeting. So in every sprint meeting, you can again display, okay, this is the vision for which we started this project. So I believe that we are still on it. So if there's any deviation that happened, you can again say that, in the last sprint, when we did the execution cycle, this kind of a deviation happened. So come back, like, is this vision still valid, customer? I think that we are still, or you have your priority changed, right? So doing execution in cycles with multiple feedback loops, this can be followed whether you create a usable product or not at the end of a sprint. So this is the way that they visualize the sprint. So for example, in agile projects, what happens? The requirements will keep on coming, okay? So they maintain a document called as a product backlog document. In the backlog document, whatever new requirements, whatever the customer comes up with, any new idea related to the product will be just to simply be added onto a product backlog document. Product backlog document, you can visualize that as a requirement document, but it is not like a finalized, like frozen requirement document. It's a kind of like whatever comes in my mind, I'll put it in the product backlog. For example, when I'm creating a slide for this particular seminar or a webinar, so I did not directly enter into the preparation of this PowerPoint, right? So I have created like an outline, right? So for example, for the last 2-3 weeks, I have been whatever come along my across my mind, like what can be discussed. So I have started putting this in pieces in a particular document. I can call that as a product backlog document. So whatever came into my mind, I'm not discussing all of this in this class. Later, what did I do? Okay, in this particular span of time, what I can discuss, what is the best thing that we can discuss. So whatever came in my mind, the document that I put, right, that's called as a product backlog document. Then from the product backlog document, the team members will sit with the customer and they will say that, customer, as of now, you and we together have added these many items in the product backlog. So we are going to get into the execution now. So in the next 1 month or in the next 4 weeks, what do you think you want to concentrate on? So now you should tell us really that what do you really want to immediately see? Okay, quickly you want to see, what do you want to really focus on? Okay, the customer may have a dream about his product or service, but what required today, what required now? So that we are going to discuss 2-3 weeks before every 2-3 weeks before we start the sprint, or sometimes it could even be just 1 week before the sprint. So every time we sit with the product backlog and we use that as a checklist. So at the end of the project, only 50% of the whatever is in the product backlog might be included in the product, but another 50% is for the future enhancement of that product. It could be a HR healthcare information system, or it could be a supply chain tool, or it could be any product for that matter, any solution. So whatever that customer have, or whatever that luxury features you think, everything can be there in the product backlog. But when we enter the execution, we are dividing them into sprints, and before every sprint, we are going to have a planning meeting. So we are finalizing the vision, we ensure that we are still on the vision, and we are prioritizing the features. And then at the end of the sprint, what do? We will have a review meeting with the customer, and then we have a retrospective meeting. So starting a sprint, doing a project in sprints, and then starting with a planning meeting for every sprint, ending with a review meeting and a retrospective meeting can be followed in any project. It is not necessarily it is a predictive project or a agile project, irrespective of any industry. So this practice I widely see is now started entering into construction industry also. The construction industry is now talking about module building. The construction industry is now talking about cross-functional collaboration, in higher frequencies. I see a lot of sprint planning, these terms entering into oil and gas companies. And they are talking about retrospective meetings in oil and gas companies, particularly the quality team have started using this retrospective meetings in their culture. So you can customize it and use it. And then when it comes to a sprint, usually there will be three personalities. One is the project manager, and another one is a product owner. The product owner is none other than a customer representative, but this customer representative is not from the customer company. The customer representative in our team. So one person who we call him as a SPOC, single point of contact for the customer. It is not necessarily a project manager. It can be a project manager. It can be somebody else as well. So the single point of contact for the customer, that person, and then the project manager, and then the core executing team. These three members or these three set of people. So in IT, they are calling them as the project manager is called as the Scrum Master, the core development team, the executing team is called as developers, and then the single point of contact for the customer, this person is called as the product owner. So this you can convert these terminologies for your industry. So what Agile suggests that you have to have a single point of contact for the customer. And this single point of contact for the customer should have a good business sense. This person should be able to convert the business language of the customer to a technical language. So this person is like a bridge between the customer and the end user. So if a project manager can do that very well, good. But if not, if you have like a business development guy, or if you have somebody who represents business, could be a business analyst, could be a business development, could be a relationship manager. So who is technically aware, at the same time who can understand the bigger picture, the strategic goal of the customer, the pain points of the customer, who is often going on a customer site visit. So these are the three people who should collaborate in a sprint. So are we doing this? If you're doing this, you're already agile. That is an agile practice. That is a core agile practice. These three different roles are remarkably seen in agile environment, and these three people collaborate in the beginning of the sprint, during the sprint, at the end of the sprint. So there would be a planning meeting, there would be a daily stand-up meeting every day, and then at the end of the sprint, you will have a review meeting. So even if your customer is unable to attend all these meetings, so you have to have somebody from your team who can speak like a customer. So you will consider this person as like an internal customer. So identify a person who will act like a customer, or like a devil's advocate, you can say, or like an internal customer. So he or she is the mouthpiece of the customer. So identify a role like that. If you have a role like that, then that can be called that you're following agile. So why do we have sprints? If you see here, because in a waterfall, you come up with a full idea, and you think you have come up with a full idea, and then there is some kind of a wall between you and your customer. You start executing without full feedback loops, and then you finally deliver a product, and that product may not be satisfactory to your customer. The customer is surprised with the product. The customer now understand you have completely misunderstood the requirements. Now the customer, it's too late, because you have already built the product. You have already spent a lot of time, money, everything in the product. So that is too much of stability, okay? Where there is a high risk of the product or service being rejected at the end. And the other end of the spectrum, you have too much of flexibility. So sometimes in a name of agile, I have seen that people just go wander around there, and the project is never ending. Like When we say accommodating changes, it is not like accommodating changes in an uncontrolled manner. So agile or sprint, in a way, it is like a controlled flexibility. So we have a product backlog. So whatever comes to your mind, put it in the product backlog. But when we enter into an execution cycle, every execution cycle is like 1 to 4 weeks. So when we gonna start the execution cycle, so just before that execution cycle, you're gonna have a planning meeting. You're gonna have a quick sprint meeting with your customer. So in this meeting, the customer may not be clear about the complete product, but the customer should at least be clear about few features that we are going to start the work in the next 2-3 weeks. So it's like a controlled sprint. We are not completely avoiding change, or at the same time, we are not taking changes as it comes along the way, deviating from the vision. So at the end of every sprint, we confirm that we are still on the vision and there's no change in the value definition. And when we start a new sprint, again, we confirm that, okay, this is what we are going to work on. Minor changes within the sprint is even allowed. So that is why we are going for sprints. Okay, and then when it comes to the tools, there are 2 tools which came from manufacturing, which is used in Agile, and it can be used in anywhere. Number 1, the value stream maps, and number 2, the Kanban boards. So if you look at a value stream map, okay, this is a value stream map. So you know flowcharts. I believe everybody know flowcharts, which is like a step-by-step visual map. So whereas value stream map is like a flowchart, it tells you the processes that you're using to create a product. But what happens is a member, sometimes 2 or 3 members, so they will spend a few hours. It need not be you spending hours. It could even be digitally captured. So they follow one customer, or they follow one requirement. If it's going to be a requirement, one requirement. Like when it was requested and when it was, come out as a feature. So this is like in IT, you can see. So the request was, came in. So let's say it could be a ticket, it could be a bug, right? So what is the value added time and what is the waiting time? So between one process and another process, how much time was spent on adding value and how much time it was waiting between one process and another process. For example, if you're into a banking, okay, somebody gave you a loan application. So you are the first person who looked at the loan application. Your duty is to ensure that all the forms in the loan application is filled. You ensure that all the pages are signed either digitally or physically. So you are the first process. So you, for one application, maybe you took only, let's say, 10 minutes to review. Okay, so to look at all the pages to ensure that, yes, this is all full complete. So you have taken only 10 minutes to finish that one application. Now you are moving this application to the next process. Okay, so the next process could be next level of assessment. But between you and the next person, maybe this application is waiting for 1 day. You finished your job in 10 minutes, and the next person can also finish their work on the application maybe in 15 minutes. But between you and the next person, the application was really waiting for probably 10 minutes, 20 minutes, sometimes in days. So this is captured. Originally, this came from a manufacturing company where they prepare a value stream map. This is a lean practice. They prepare a value stream map, like how the raw material entered, and in every process, how much time is spent, how much inventories, how many units are waiting to be processed, what is the time, what is the waiting time, what is the cycle time. Cycle time means processing time. So this is now followed in software companies, and this can be followed in any organization. What is the intention of this? The intention of this map is to understand what is the waiting time and investigating on the waiting time. So reduce the waiting time. So many a times we focus on reducing the process time and we don't concentrate on the waiting time. So this is particularly because lean talks about what? adding value. In other words, reducing non-value added activities, reducing waiting times. So this waiting time problem is a problem everywhere across the industries. So using value stream maps can help you to identify which process is a bottleneck, which process is a fast moving process, where the applications, or where the customers, or where the requirements are waiting, and what is the reason behind that. So this investigative tool is used for continuous improvement, and this tool is even discussed during the retrospective meetings quite often. So this is not like an agile tool, it is a flow chart with insights on waiting time and value added time, right? So this can be followed in any industry. Again, it is followed in banking widely. This is followed in call centers, right? So in call centers, they have to look at the queue time, right? So if the customer every second, every minute, the customer waiting is going to create a dissatisfaction for the customer. So this queue management is pretty important in call centers. So they follow the quality team, follow value stream map to improve the processes. So which they are calling it as agile, but it is not from software industry originally. Kanban boards, again, Kanban boards is followed in agile. It came from lean. So it was originally Kanban system, bin system in manufacturing. Now they are converting into Kanban boards. Most of you would have seen this Kanban boards. Kanban board is nothing but like a task board. But don't think that any task board is a Kanban board. No, if you have a Kanban board, like what you see here, these are list of tasks to be done. You can call it task to be done, or this could be requirements to be fulfilled. So these are the list of requirements identified. This is in your backlog, right? The list of requirements which are identified. Now, some of them will enter into the execution, right? So you can have several stages in your execution. So you can simply call it like, analysis stage, execution stage, testing stage, or you can simply call it to do, in progress, done. However you wanna, you can customize this Kanban lanes. Okay, for example, sales teams are using this Kanban boards. So how do they name the lanes? They call it like leads generated, leads moving to inquiry stage, inquiry moving on to prospect stage, and then a close to sale. So this kind of, you can define the names of this Kanban lane. So the intention of the Kanban lane is to, Kanban board is to understand which requirement is in which stage. For example, if it is a IT, how do they use it? So which features are in design stage, which features are in development stage, which features are in testing stage. So this brings a complete transparency, not only between the team, but also with the customer. For example, the customer see that one particular item have not entered into any of these lanes. It is still waiting in the backlog. But the customer wants it immediately. That is the most important feature. So the customer may contact the product owner or the project manager and say that, see, in the Kanban lane, I see one of the feature is waiting in the backlog. I want this to be urgently moved, right? So now what happens? They would reprioritize this. Okay, this orange one here, this should be on the top because the customer wants have prioritized it. Or the customer says that I see one particular feature is in the design stage. Okay, stop it. I don't think I no longer want that feature. So you have already spent 2 hours of labor in that, but keep it aside. I don't want you to spend more time on that. All right. So the real-time feedback, like which should be moved faster, which should be stopped, or which need not to enter into the execution. So the Kanban board is shared with multiple stakeholders. And then another important use of a Kanban board, you can see here something called as limit. So limit means how many tasks should maximum be in that particular lane. For example, when I say limit 5, so in progress, there should be a maximum of limit 5. For example, if the lane is already full, what does it mean? You have to stop, which means you cannot take more item on the progress. So you have to clear this. So this is what they are in Agile. What do they say? Don't keep too many items in progress. Don't start many things and keep everything in progress. Finish it. Okay, take it, move it, take it, finish it. So focus on delivery. Don't focus. This is again what it's a supply chain concept. This is what they call it as just in time. Okay, work based on the demand of the next person, or work based on the demand of the next process, right? So this Kanban boards was tested in a barbecue get together. So this is just a test which is made, and here they saw that how easily even kids can understand the Kanban board. So they looked at this, and in just a few minutes the kids understood that, okay, so here these are the items somebody have requested, and these are the items which are in the progress, and these are already available. So if you want to enjoy these dish or recipes, you can go ahead and take it. But if you want something in the going on, you have to wait for some time. So if you want something to be added, you can add onto the to-do list. So this is nothing but a Kanban board. You can customize this Kanban. But when you say Kanban, why it is called as Kanban? Kanban means a signal. What signal for what? Signal that tells you whether the next process is ready or not. Okay, so when I say the next process have a limit of 5, and if I'm the previous process, the limit is already reached, which means I should stop my process. There's no point of me pushing more work to the next person when that process is already full, when their hands are already full. So I can concentrate on elsewhere in another work, maybe in another project, rather than adding more deliverables for the next person to work. So this is to keep each other in check. So we don't want to create bottlenecks. We don't want to keep many things in progress. So that's the use of a Kanban board, which is widely used in, you can see a Kanban board, digital Kanban board. There are many tools here, Jira, ClickUp, kind of Monday.com. So they have Kanban boards. MS Project may soon introduce Kanban board. I'm not sure whether the latest version have Kanban board. Primavera, there is no sign whether they will use a Kanban board in the future. So Kanban board is a real-time task board. It's like an activity list, but it tells you where exactly the activity and who is working on. So you can see here the name of the requirement or activity, the code number for it. If I click on that, I can see when the work have really started, who is working on it, which designer have worked on it, which developer is working on it. So in the future, if there's a bug found, so I can see how many hands were there and which person should fix this, right? Who was responsible for this? So this is like a real time, who works on it, where, in what stage in it, what is the current priority of that. So even the color codes. So if it is a blue, it's a new requirement. If it is like a red, which means it's a rework. Okay, so you can even make color codes. So this can be followed. So the idea of Kanban board is to ensure no process is acting like a bottleneck, or to find the bottleneck. The one philosophy that Agile talks about is delivering value. That is what Lean or Agile talks about, and which is followed in any kind of a world you are in, whether you're in a predictive world or an Agile world. So what is value delivery? Focus on the technical excellence of the product. Simplify the process. So instead of following rigid processing, instead of saying that, like, to the customer that you are a number, I process it. So I am like a processing machine. Okay, so you come in, I will process you with the set of rules and regulations I have. I don't care whether you're satisfied or not. My duty is to just follow the contract clauses. That's what I am here for. Instead of that mindset, you are again and again affirming, confirming that what is the priority of the customer? Are we really working on necessary things? So in Toyota, when they say value, non-value, so how do they differentiate it? Any work for which the customer is willing to pay for, it is called as value-adding activity. Any work for which the customer is not willing to pay for, it is called as a non-value-added activity. For example, the customer is willing to pay for the product features. The customer is not willing to pay for the rework that you do. The customer is not willing to pay for like too much of time that you take in a meeting. So you have to keep the non-value added activities as minimum as possible, because you cannot completely nullify the non-value added activities, because there are certain non-value added activities which are still required but non-value. For example, you cannot have zero meetings in your project. You still have to have meetings, but you have to keep it minimized. You have to reduce the time. You have to time box them. So focusing on value, okay, maximize the value, not just output. So create features which are usable quickly, as early as possible. So that is the way that you're running your product development. So which can be followed in any project. That is what the value stream maps are used for. Finding where the waiting time is, finding what are the non-value, how do we simplify this document? How do we simplify this process? How do we reduce the approval levels? How do we build quality rather than inspection? Rather than too much of inspection, how do we eliminate errors so that we don't spend too much time on testing over testing, approving over approvals over approvals. So if you have too many approvals, what does it mean? You do not have a reliable process. That's what it means. So how do we, instead of talking in too much of texts, how do we make it visual? How do we make it visually conducive so that you can quickly capture that information? You can quickly disseminate that information. How do we increase the interactive communication so that we can quickly resolve the issues? So focusing on flexible manners of resolving issues, focusing on reducing the process time, and focusing on the technical excellence rather than getting messed with this matrix. So that's what Agile talks about. That's what Lean talks about. And that can be followed in any particular world. So the final word is that tech world is full of agility. Are they trying to force this agility on us? If this is what you're thinking, remember that although Agile came from IT, not all the IT companies are Agile. So having experience with working with multiple IT organizations as a consultant, as a trainer, I have seen that many of the IT organizations are still using rigid processes, rigid way of creating a software, and even after they doesn't work out for them, still they are not aware of this agile world. So tech world is not completely aware of agile, and they're trying to force this on us. They themselves have to really be aware of more and more agile practices. Number one. Number two, you need not to force, like, okay, today I'm going to follow Kanban board. Okay, today I'm going to follow value stream map. So don't pick a tool, okay, or don't try to study a particular concept, okay, and use the same terminology, same way. Don't try to force this on your project, okay? So if you think that in these areas, in the way that I develop my product, I still go for a sequential phase, but I like this retrospective concept. So be not conducting retrospective meetings as it is told in Agile. So can I use retrospective meetings? So try that. Maybe you can even improvise the retrospective meetings in the future. So maybe you can add more value onto those retrospective meetings. You can add more value onto the Kanban boards. The way that is used now, maybe you can add more value on that. So no need to force a particular tool. Rather, take the philosophy, take the principle, customer centricity, value delivery, reducing the non-value. This is the philosophy and principle. Take the principle and you devise your tool. You can even name the tool related to your industry. So in Agile, what they say is like, you have a lot of requirements, a lot of ideas, right? And you have a lot of value added and non-value added activities. So in every sprint meeting, you find which is more useful, and then you take it to the ground. So similarly, you study about these things, like, what is Agile, what is Scrum, what is Kanban. Okay, so I have just started this discussion in the little time that we have. So now you explore on that, and you customize it without even bounding yourself with this frameworks again. So even without knowing all these methodologies, you can still be agile. even without knowing this TDD, FTD. As long as you know the values, as long as you know the philosophies and principles, you can devise your new tool. IKEA is already agile without even using many of these agile terminologies. So they talk about co-creation, okay, involving customers in the creation process of their furnitures or of their products. Lego is one of the company that is using customer centricity, value delivery concepts, even without using this fancy agile words like Scrum or TDD or FDD, etc. And you can see agile, read about co-creation in IKEA, how they involve customer right from the prototyping stage. So there is a case study that I come across, how they developed the cot for hostelers, for people who reside in mansions, and how they involved those students who are in hostels and mansions to create a furniture. Okay, so a furniture piece, because they have less space and they have to do a lot of things in a single furniture, how they designed it by involving the customer right from the prototyping stage. That is agile. Co-creation is an agile concept. Lego does that. And then in other words, agile, what agile tries to tell us that there should be a complete collaboration between the developers or the makers and the end users. So you may develop a product in a predictive manner, but are you directly interacting with the end users? Are you directly looking at the pain points of the end users? Are you directly looking at what exactly value, what exactly is the benefit that this end user wants to achieve through this product or service? Are we doing several checks and testing? Okay, so if you're doing that, you are agile. If there is no too many hands off between the maker and the end user, and the end users are involved in the making process, you are superbly agile. So there is this project called as JAS 39E SAP Gripen, which is a jet, which is a war jet. So this particular project, because usually this military vehicles and particularly aircraft development it is a predictive product. You have to have a well-developed design before you go for execution. But they used this agile practices like co-located team, having face-to-face interaction between the business people and the technical people is an important feature in agile. They did this. 1,500 people co-located. Okay, and they developed this product through sprints. Okay, so they started with a sprint planning meeting. They appointed somebody called as a product owner in addition to the project manager. One of the team member acted like a product owner who have a business sense. They found this person who have both the technical and the business sense and have a good knowledge on the competitor. They nurture product owners. And then they had the sprint meetings and retrospective meetings. So they did several prototyping. In every stage they did prototyping, not only in the preliminary stage. For every single part of the jet, they did a prototyping, testing, validation, and then they were entered into execution. They prioritized and reprioritized. And then they finally, when compared to their the waterfall practices that they followed, they found that very highly, they saved a lot of money in the cost and also in the time. And particularly, they saw highly motivated employees at the end of this project and satisfied stakeholders at the end of the project by using agile practice in a predictive world. I mean, in a predictive product, but they used this agile practices, which is one of the successful projects. You can little go deeper in about this case study, like what kind of agile practices they used in this stuff in this project. So what I'm trying to say is, like, explore the agile world, because there is a famous saying by Abraham Maslow that if you have only hammer, you will see everything else as nail, right? So you know only about predictive practices, you know only Gantt chart, you know only work breakdown structure. So what would you try to do? You will force that predictive practice in, because you don't know the other world. So if you have only hammer with you, I'm not saying hammer is not a useful tool. Hammer could be a useful tool in many cases. You may have nails as well. But if you have only hammer, then you would try to convert every requirement, look at every project, manage every project using only predictive practices. So even a COVID virus may look like a nail to you, a set of nails, if you have only a hammer, right? So look at the other tool, which is an agile. You call it framework, you call it methodology, I call it culture, I call it mindset. And many of the agile practitioners also do the same. So look at this philosophy principle and be aware of these tools so that you will know when you go back to your work, now you can understand this problem. You were thinking it is a nail, but it is not a nail. You know now it is a screw. So you have to use a spanner, or maybe it is just a a hook. Maybe you require a different tool for that. So now you being aware of the tools more and more, you will be more aware of your problems, the same problems that you were facing, but now you will see a different dimension of the problem when you know this tool. You're going to use it or not use it, but please be aware of it so that you will look at the problems from other side. So do you have to really force agile? No. Do majority of the people fear change? I would say majority of the people do not fear change. Majority of the people fear sudden change. So what you have to do is when you're introducing agile in your company, if you are a CEO of a company, when you're introducing agile in a company, I would suggest you to go for a pull system. If there is no immediate urgency, go for a pull way of introducing change rather than a push way of introducing. So don't tell them that, okay, I learned agile, now we are going to go scrum. Okay, then they don't buy the change. So acknowledge their current practices. Tell them that whatever right practices that they are already in, acknowledge it, and then say that, yeah, this is good, this is great. But why don't we start with some kind of a training first, education without any immediate benefit of it. Make your people don't tell them that you're going to have a change and that's why you're going to train them. So give awareness of the agile tools. Maybe your team is the best people to say that which agile tool is useful for them, which agile tool will solve their current problems. So go for a pull approach rather than a push approach. And when you're introducing change, all the three are important for any change, particularly for agile change: the head, heart, and hand. So when I say head, I mean you should know the logics, you should know the tools and concepts. So first of all, you are intellectually ready. Number two, you have the heart. You are motivating your people. You are creating a demand within you are first of all convinced, and then you create a demand within your team. So your team is enthusiastic to take it. Number three, hand, very, very important, which means you just don't tell them, you help them. You are there to introduce that tool or practice within your company, and you're doing that with an open mind. So you're ready to change it. You're ready to be in the field when you're introducing agile, not like a preacher who introduces agile. This is what many agile mentors do something wrong. All the three are important. If there is no intellectual concepts, if you're not aware of concept, you're ready by heart and hand, it is just a reckless enthusiasm. It's not going to take you anywhere. No vision, and you have willingness, and you have you want to do the field work, it is of no use because there is no vision. And you have head and heart but not hand, then it is like you have a strategy but there's no legs. And you have a head and a hand but no heart, then people are like frustrated, or they know what to do and they are just doing but without their full heart onto it, which means they are not motivated, they are frustrated. Soon you will see the hand will also go away, right? So all the three are important: the intellectual knowledge, the concepts, the tool knowledge, and then the enthusiasm, and then of course your willingness to work on the field and change it as you want, right? So here in agile, what we are talking about is like the important thing is not, I'm not telling you that this is agile process. I'm just telling you, go back and look at your process. So what you're working on is in the product, using some defined process. Now go back and look at your process and have a process to change your process. Okay, that's what Agile calls for. Agile says that purpose, people, and process in the same order. Know the vision. Number two, enable your people. Process should be changed for the people. Process should be changed for the purpose. Process should not be a hindrance for the people and the purpose. So vision is important, and you require your empowered people, and you can customize your process. So Agile tells you to be agile in your process. So change is the only thing that does not change. So I end with Darwin's quote. It is not the most intellectual of the species that survives. It is not the strongest that survives. It is the one that adjusts to the changes, that can survive. We saw this in COVID times. The companies that survived during COVID times are the people who are able to quickly adapt to that environment of work from home, quickly adapt, the businesses that can quickly adapt to the no physical contact business, right? So the one that quickly adapts, agile talks about the philosophy of agile and lean is recognize change and say no to a change. Listen to the change, whether you follow it or not, that's secondary, but be open to the change the paradigm. Okay, so change is a chance to grow. So the final key takeaway is like Agile is not new. We are doing Agile within our companies, maybe not using the same terminologies. So recognize what are the Agile practices. Are you doing sprints? Are you having a lot of customer collaboration? Do you use visual management tools? So if you're doing that, in a way, you have already introduced Agile practices. Agile is not a software thing. Agile, it came from manufacturing. Now it is practiced in healthcare and banking. Do not push Agile in your company if there's no urgency. Do not push Agile in your company, create a pull demand. First, start with your education in values and principles and philosophies rather than straight away entering into a methodology or a tool. So don't straight away explore what is a Kanban board. Okay, if you read Kanban board without understanding the philosophy behind Kanban, it doesn't make any sense. If you're trying to understand what is a daily scrum meeting without understanding what is sprint, why do they go for sprint, then there is no meaning. So start your education with the philosophy and then values and principles, then explore the tools. Agile is not a set of tools. Agile is a habit. Okay. So thank you, everybody. Any questions? The floor is open. I know that the time is past. So of course, you can always give your questions in an email as well. You can send the questions to the email or whatever is the communication that you already have. You can send your questions. You can also visit, if you're locally available, you can visit us. And I would advise you to participate in future webinars as well. Thank you. Enrique, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Durga. All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending our webinar for Agile. So, yes, what Ms. Durga said, process is very important. So, for some of you that wants to proceed with project management in the future, where you can learn 50% of process, 42% of people, and 8% of business environment, you can proceed with PMP, where you can learn 50% of agile and 50% of traditional. So if you have any inquiries, you can reach me out at my phone number showing on your screen. It's +971 4991, or by email at enrique@quadrapluspmti.com. And by the way, for those people who opted in for to receive a certificate for this webinar, just kindly message or respond to the email confirmation under admin at quadrapluspmti.com. Just share your complete name as what you want to appear on the certificate. And if you have any further questions or inquiries or clarifications, you can also shoot us an email at admin at quadrapluspmti.com. All right, thank you everyone. Thank you for attending and hope you have a lot of ideas gathered from Miss Durga. Hope to see you in the future, guys. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. You can always post your questions. Although I'm available, if you think it's too late, then you can also post your questions in the email.